All right, we've got an inordinate amount of material to cover. We're looking at the sun at 193 angstroms here. It's about 7 hours for October 17th, and we see a very defined coronal hole rotating toward the Earth, and a very defined coronal hole in the south. It is interacting with the south polar field also. It's quite powerful. We are expecting a magnetic connection to that soon. We finally saw a 6+ magnitude earthquake in the Philippines, and much more to cover. So next we're going to zoom in on this area right down here in 304 angstroms, because there's a huge plasma filament out there. And there you see that plasma filament just kind of hanging out so far, looking pretty stable. It's been there since throughout yesterday. Here's the rest of the view at that wavelength. Again, this is about 7 hours. Some big filaments on the west and the east also. So some activity kicking off despite the 10.7 centimeter radial flux speed all the way down to 66. And I brought up the colorized magnetogram too to take a look at the possibility of any magnetic field organization, and there really is no such field organization. There's the latest ultra high res view. I'll scroll back up for you. Tiny bit of magnetism there rising up over the east, trailing that coronal hole actually. And this, we typically do often see this magnetic regions right bordering the coronal holes. Let's talk about the great leader before we go on to lots of other stuff. Look at this majestic ride. Oh my goodness. And he rode a white horse on a sacred mountain. Check him out. Now, Kim Jong-un, he likes to go up on a sacred mountain and go on horse rides. You know, he likes to go horseback riding when he's making important decisions like whether or not to execute his uncle. And so he staged a photo shoot, and there he is on the sacred mountain. I don't know what it's called. It's called Mount Paektu. Mount Paektu. And unlike Putin, Kim Jong-un prefers to ride with a shirt on for obvious reasons. Regarding geopolitics, let me know when it's over. This Zero Hedge article, now we've got links to the USA article, the USA Today article below the video. This one written by Charles Hughes Smith of Two Minds blog. Carefully fall into the cliff. I guess that's the translation. Carefully fall into the cliff. Anyway, it's basically just an article complaining about various things. And it's pretty amusing. Let me read you a quote. We are eating our seed corn. And just a little aside here. Weren't we concerned about that back in February on this channel? Please leave a comment. We are eating our seed corn while borrowing profligately from the future to create an illusion of growth, an illusion that requires ever greater levels of intervention and manipulation and propaganda. Dissent must be buried or silenced as the absurd disconnects from reality. Reach new extremes. Yes. Absurd disconnects from reality reach new extremes, folks. So there's some reality and there's some fakeality out there. And let's just move on to talk about the mission, which is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between things like space weather and Earth effects, to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, hence the existence of this YouTube channel. And wherever you else might be watching this, perhaps if you're watching it on BitChute or on Minds, we try to do direct uploads when possible. We also demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems. And we're going to be covering the Jerusalem artichokes as well as the indoor tomatoes soon. Not to mention goldfish nitrogen cycles. Also to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including but not limited to those sciences. and also to assist the humans in advancing the study of predictive phenomenon, to do things like optimize value and reduce risk and liability and save lives and resources and adapt no matter what the adversity is, and to not be ossified in our beliefs and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. Remember, folks, ignorance is the root of all knowledge. You can't know something before you don't know it, right? Solar wind has dropped off a cliff, if you were wondering. It's come up since I did show prep, where it was less than 1 proton per cubic centimeter. It was like 0.3 protons per cubic centimeter. Now it's up to 1.5, still very low. But the solar wind speed has remained at 420. We don't see any phi angle indicating a connection with that coronal hole, but that could happen at any moment. As remember, folks, magnetic environments can change with absolutely zero warning, which is not something we like to inform you of, as it's not good for your health, but it's the truth. So there you go. There's the ACE data, which corroborates, discovers. We see a very weak solar wind creating a very weak magnetosphere. Here's 4 hours of data from it. And you snooze, you lose. And it's snoozing. Legit solar minimum conditions, folks. Again, 10.7 centimeter radial flux all the way down to 66. Here's the ground geospace magnetic perturbations. Interestingly, the southern ones are actually more centered on Antarctica this time, as opposed to in the Indian Ocean. Although we do still see some creep into the Indian Ocean. Most of the perturbations in the north are over the net pole. The net of the 2 north poles, that is, which is somewhere east of Greenland. Check out this filament photograph by Alan Friedman. Nicely done. It's got the Earth here as a reference. This solar filament, I'm not sure if it's coming out of the North Pole or not. I don't know if that's oriented, I don't know if that's oriented or if that's just cropped, or maybe that could be rotated. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's from spaceweather.com. Check that out. Again, 10.7 centimeter radial flux, very low. It's legit solar minimum conditions. We use the 10.7 centimeter radial flux as a proxy to sunspots, as this measurement, quite precisely as far as we know, seems to follow sunspot cycles. So it's a very close correlation between 10.7 centimeter radial flux and sunspot cycles, which is why we look at it. It's a measure of the outer corona, which emits radio frequency, and we call it solar flux units. Let's don't get into that. And the GOES magnetometer is looking a little spiky here. It looks like we're still on the same charge of the current sheet, though. I thought it looked yesterday like we'd already crossed, perhaps. And according to the Gong 2 data, let's just make sure we have the newest data here. And there's the Gong 2 run. Still very close to the polarity crossing, and there could have been a flipping going on there, because sometimes this will sputter back and forth depending on activity. We don't see a lot of magnetic activity going on, but we do see coronal holes, which do affect things as they spew protons into space in a stream, which, as the sun rotates, that forms what we call the heliospheric current sheet, and so on. Anyway, there's the last data. That's an hour and 50 minutes old. We should see some oddities in the GOES magnetometer in the coming hours, as we are probably in the process of crossing the barrier right now, actually. And there's the electron flux. We saw a pretty significant dip yesterday at midnight. Those N's and M's up there, folks, these N's and M's up here, those are midnight and noon for the satellites, which are the GOES 14 and 15. And there are the relativistic electrons. Nothing to write home about there. Charging hazards are minimal, and they're over the Caribbean as we make this video a little bit early today. And the X-ray flux is totally flatlined. KP is at 2 for an extended period, which is a fairly comfortable KP considering how weak the solar wind is. Probably going to see that drop down to 1 or 0. And there's the F2 layer, all the F layers, I should say. Regular viewers are probably aware that there is no F2 layer at nighttime. Where you see those red blobs, that's just the F layer. And if you're trying to send radio signals through that, if you're trying to bounce radio signals, refract radio signals through there, you're effed, because it's not going to work. Anyway, nothing to write home about there really in the ionosphere. Looking pretty normal. A little bit charged on the southern nighttime side. Again, we saw a 6.4 magnitude quake in the Philippines, but let's go down the whole list. Past 24 included a 4.6 in Indonesia, a 4.6 at Alaska. Out in the Aleutians, we've seen activity out there. Perhaps magmatic in nature, as there are volcanic islands out there. And there's that 6.4 at the Philippines. We'll show you a close-up of that real quick, as there is still a lot of stuff to get to, folks. There's a location of that. I'm not going to start trying to pronounce these names because it doesn't seem like a fun plan. So we do see a little uptick. At least the magnitude 6 earthquake drought has ended, but the magnitude 7 earthquake drought continues, folks. So let's see if we see any deep quakes. We saw a drought of deep quakes yesterday too, so a seismic downtick, perhaps the calm before the storm. Wouldn't be surprised to see a 7 or even an 8 magnitude quake. Let's hope not in California. I would still say my best guess is Western South America. 5.3 at the Philippines is next. That's just an aftershock, another aftershock at the Philippines. Here's a deep quake at Argentina. No surprise there. Again, that coronal hole could magnetically connect at any moment today, folks. So 4.9 at the Mariana Islands, way out in the Pacific. And here's a deep quake at Indonesia. That one at 109 kilometers and a 4.5 magnitude. Here's one at Burma. Please leave a comment if you're aware whether or not Jay Peterman is currently in Burma, or if he's working on the latest Jay Peterman catalog. 4.8 at the South Atlantic Ridge, right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean there, in the middle of the South Atlantic, right on the plate boundary. And there's a 4.7 out west of Easter Island. Here's a 5.1 at the Philippines. That one is at depth, perhaps suggesting more quakes to come there. Let's hope that 6+ magnitude quake was not a foreshock. 4.9 at East Timor. 5.0 at the southern mid-Atlantic Ridge. Just under my head there, you can see that blue dot right there. 5.0 aftershock at the Philippines, 4.7 in Indonesia, 4.8 at Ecuador, actually way off in the ocean really, and that one at the surface and on a plate boundary. And last but not least, another deep quake in the Atacama Desert. Please leave a comment if you're watching the video from the Atacama Space Telescope. Not Space Telescope, the telescope that scopes space. It's not in space. Anyway, I decided to show you the windy snow depth map. And I'm just going to let this play through instead of... Actually, let's bring up the pressure, since there is such a high earthquake risk going on right now. Just let this... I'm just going to actually advance this to Monday the 22nd to see the GFS snowfall expectations. And let's show the pressure maps. Are you under pressure? Are you stuck in a slave world and trying to get out? Well, I sure am. So please support our channel via Patreon. And here's the pressure map where it currently is, and the time is 3:11, and that is Eastern Daylight Time. We'll just let that advance. Look at the massive low pressure system over Alaska. That low pressure system is just gigantic. Look at the size of that thing. And we'll let this advance here. Looks like it's working, I think. By the way, the bomb cyclone has stopped being right over my head, and it's now moved up to probably someplace like Binghamton, New York. I'm no longer getting bombed out by intense winds and rain. Coming from the wrong direction, by the way. Your daily volcano rundown includes Shivaluch producing a 26,000-foot ash plume, Ibico, 10,000-foot ash plume there, Mount Aso, 6,000-foot ash plume, Sakurajima, 8,000-foot ash plume, Krakatoa, back to erupting, 2,000-foot ash plume there. I would stay the heck away from that thing. Krakatoa, it's already killed, what, 400 people this year in that tsunami, where it just suddenly collapsed with little to no warning. Tucono, exploding, producing an 8,000-foot plume. Revenador, 15,000-foot plume there. Sabancaya exploding also, just like Revenador and Tucono. And Copihu, don't cop a feel of Copihu, as it's still emitting ash. And please don't try to jump a BMX bike over the Copihu. Don't cop a feel on a bit. You get the idea. Here's a great article from phys.org. We call them like we see them, folks. When they screw up, we call them. When they get it right, we call them. Anyway, some folks on some planes flew a bunch of missions where their flight path was like that. Like that. And then they measured a bunch of particulates, and they understand the albedo effect, and they realize that these are all global cooling inputs, and it's actually like science that's actual science. And here's a quote: exactly how aerosols and clouds affect radiation is a big source of uncertainty in climate models. We want to properly represent clouds in climate models, said Williamson. Observations like the ones in the study will help us better constrain aerosols and clouds in our models and can direct model improvements. Yeah, model improvements. Now, I would just like to state that the Svensmark cosmic ray cloud nucleation experiments happened in 1996. So thanks for catching up. And we've got links to this article also. Cheers. And by the way, we're talking about low clouds, which are also associated with cosmic rays. Clouds form, light gets reflected back into space. It's called the albedo effect. It's a global cooling positive feedback loop. And let's move on to an article about more stuff in the air. Check this one out. Somebody has figured out a way, a scalable, acceptable way to use a chip to measure particles in the air to parts per billion. Yeah. You'll be able to figure out how hot a hot pepper is. You'll be able to, this is just unbelievable. So these folks right here, it uses a relatively low power laser. There's a bunch of metal flakes inside of the chip that diffuse the light apart. There's the chip. And this is like, I mean, parts per billion measurements this way. This is extreme. The laser is only 50 milliwatts, more than 7 times weaker than in other applications of Raman spectroscopy, not to be confused with ramen noodles. And this is yet another reason why folks won't be needing to eat ramen noodles, because this will make everybody better off. It's going to be used to detect all kinds of things, such as naphthalene and benzene and all kinds of really highly deadly things. So the applications go on and on. Shout out to Professor Ling-Jing Yi and Fan-Kuang Jia-Guang for coming up with that invention. Well done. Cheers. Here's where stuff is. There's where stuff will be in 1 week, if you weren't aware. Here's where stuff is above my head. Well, kinda. Let's refresh. Isn't it refreshing to refresh, folks? Figure out where stuff is above your head. Draw in the ecliptic. Face your couch to the south. The moon's right at its apex. Deneb is only a few degrees off the horizon, causing clouds to nucleate. Yeah, if you're in the northern hemisphere, Deneb has sent physical particles through your head many times. I don't know if you were aware. Anyway, here's the lightning maps, courtesy of lightningmaps.org, which is, I believe, a German site. So, Guten Tag. Guten Tag, Herr Awesomes. And there's a U.S. Doppler radar map, courtesy Weather Underground. Here's a water vapor map. You can see that bomb cyclone that everybody was flapping their lips about yesterday and this morning, making its way up into Maine. Actually, the low looks like it's about at western Massachusetts now. Let's zoom in. And there's the zoom in. Looks like it's a little slow. Speed it up. And there's your value-added weather service. Check out the electromagnetic field force lines over Virginia, Maryland, central Pennsylvania. It's not contrails. It's not chemtrails. It's radio waves, essentially. Ultra low frequency radio waves. By the way, the resolution of this water vapor map is 2 kilometers. So if you think those are caused by chemtrails, just keep in mind, 1 pixel equals 2 kilometers. And here's the jet streams on the same area, courtesy of Null School. Let's zoom out and look at the western jets for the whole world. And there's the western jets, and we got extreme meridional jet stream flow again. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm just going to look at the eastern jets and move on. There's the eastern jets. Extreme meridional jet stream flow, both hemispheres. Moving on to the That Is Censored, and that is a sinkhole section where we talk about whatever we want. Have you seen our movie review? The smAsho movie reviews / referrals? Have you pressed like and subscribe? Do you enjoy the content in the channel? Please like and subscribe to videos. Oh, it looks like we've gotten to 1,400 subscribers, folks. I don't know how we got a bump, but somehow we did. Cheers. Thanks, new viewers. And thanks, Smash Team. In 2018, a crack YouTube unit went to internet jail for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you've got a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find us, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. Let's talk about Asteroids.info, the Holland A. DROUGHT Observatory. Shout out to Dr. Donald Scott. We posted a video from his, I believe it was a 2014 Electric Universe dissertation. I forget what he was talking about. As I've been looking at so many different cosmology things in the past couple days, I'm losing track. Anyway, they got some interesting home astronomy done there. Check it out. Great image of the crab. Asteroids.info. And we've got some confusion in mainstream astronomy. Well, how comes it? How does it shine with the intensity of 600 trillion suns? Well, they don't know. they can't describe the physics which causes the output to be what the output is. Let's just say that. Just happens to be 420 trillion suns. Anyway, another quasar with a catchy name. Shout out to Gareth. We got to make a t-shirt for this one. J043947.08 plus 163415.7. If you want to get matching tattoos, let's get matching tattoos. That sounds great. Anyway, we've got links to the article. This is from this year, January 14th. I don't think I covered it earlier. I actually found it accidentally while looking at other stuff. How do you like that? And where are we now? We're talking about other galactic nuclei. Active ones, of course. Of course. Anyway, 28 quasars were studied. And guess what happened? they couldn't figure out how they were doing what they're doing either. Let me read a quote. And I recommend you read the whole article, but here's a quote. The authors summarize their findings, and it seems for now there is no clear explanation for these most luminous of quasars that shine with the light of 1 trillion stars. Only 1 trillion? Pfft. If it's not 420 trillion or more, I mean, pfft. Links to this article below the video also. Who wants to look up a transient? All right, I'll look up a transient. How about Cygnus X3? Do I talk about it too much? We're going to look at 2 things in Cygnus, and that's it. Here's Cygnus X3. Oh, look at that. We just had some recent transients. Look at that. A very dense set of transients right there in the past couple days. 2 days ago. And then a dense set of transients about 6 days ago. Out of Cygnus X3, aka Deneb. Let's also look up Cygnus A, the second strongest radio source in the sky, with the catchy name 3C405.0. I think we're going to get smAsho mash shirts made that say 3C405.0 and have an image, a high-res image, of course, of Cygnus A, which also had some very dense transients at the same time. Now, do you think that's a coincidence? Now, keep in mind, we're looking at hard X-rays here, not radio signal propagation. This is X-rays, not radio. So, but nonetheless, we're looking at 2 point sources here, right? Deneb and Cygnus A. Cygnus A is a radio galaxy that's 500 million plus light years away. And we always link Neil Garrel's Swift Observatory BAT monitor, the Burst Alert Telescope. We always link that below our videos, so you can monitor your favorite transients yourself. Or perhaps suggest they start monitoring ones that aren't yet monitored. There's a lot of work to do when it comes to astronomy, and part of it is classifying galaxies. So let's talk about that. Galaxy Zoo at zooniverse.org. The largest citizen science project in the world needs actual humans to classify a galaxy. Let's show the viewers what it entails. Is it smooth or just a plain elliptical thing? No, it's got features. It's got a bulge. Please leave a comment if you think it's got a bulge. It's not really an edge-on disk. There's no bar feature. There's no spiral arm pattern that I can see. It's somewhat edge-on. It's almost like the orientation to M31, known as the Andromeda Galaxy. I'm going to say a moderate bulge. I'm going to say a minor disturbance because it is slightly oblong. As you can see, the lower right end of it looks like it's longer and more elongate than the other one. It could be an optical illusion. I do see some overlap. We're going to mark that in the next screen also. We're going to say overlap. We're going to say dust lane. We're going to say irregular. And that's it, folks. We only need a few more million galaxies to be classified. This one is an odd elliptical galaxy. Probably should be studied in radio frequency. Just saying. So check out zooniverse.org's Galaxy Zoo project. Perhaps get published in a scientific paper. Let's get a little closer to home, like your mitochondria. Did you know that it acts like a battery pack? Like a series of small batteries instead of like one giant battery? In other words, if one little battery pack goes bad, the rest of it actually accounts for that and still functions. Did you know that? Well, apparently it's a new discovery. I was not aware until I read it, but anyway, we put links to the article below the video. We haven't been doing very much human health stuff. We've been talking about stuff pretty far out, and let's go back out to the Large Magellanic Cloud. Here's an article about an interesting object that we found there. a new possible high-mass X-ray binary. Now, this is quite far away. This is the Large Magellanic Cloud is about 200,000, about 160,000 light years away from the Milky Way galaxy, about the diameter of the entire galaxy in distance. But these things are very bright. So objects like Cygnus X3, aka Deneb, which is a blue supergiant, or at least a blue giant. Now, X-ray binaries are typically, quote, white dwarf, end quote, with a higher mass object siphoning plasma. And so these are very interesting to study. And we've got another catchy name. Shout out everybody who likes catchy names. This one is, which stands for, by the way, Magellanic Cloud Supernoval Remnant, J0513-6724. I love it. I think I want to get that one maybe tattooed on, I don't know, my forehead maybe. Maybe I'm going to get the Last Supper tattooed on my forehead along with MSCNRJ0513-6724. What do you think? Please leave a comment if you want to get matching forehead tattoo. Maybe of this image too. What about that? That would be perfect. I don't know. It's a tough call between Last Supper and, or we could do them both. We could make this the background. I don't know. Anyway, links to the article also below the video. And let's talk about what goes on at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. It's pretty freaking weird. And here's what went on over a 20-year period of time at the center of the Milky Way. If you weren't aware of the way stars behave in there, I'll just let this play through, as I don't think I'll get a copyright strike, since I talk cosmology all the time, and I'm talking over this video right now. Anyway, some funky behavior going on with stars close to Sagittarius A star, the massive radio source at the core of your own Milky Way galaxy. And hey, thanks again, Smash team. Stay tuned for one bonus feature, only one, and it's coming quick. Now, we covered a Data is Beautiful video yesterday, actually a couple of them. This one is talking about the most popular internet messengers, the most popular instant messengers, I'll say, from 1997 to 2019. Now, back then, it used to be AOL. I used to use AOL and AIM. Oh my gosh, when I discovered AIM, oh my gosh, that made my day, week, and month. Anyway, nowadays, it's very different because Facebook owns this space entirely. So this is the reason why I don't want users contacting me via Facebook Messenger. Don't send me Facebook messages, please, because, put it this way, Facebook Messenger is completely different on a PC versus on a mobile device. Facebook Messenger is probably the worst piece of spyware on the entire internet, and certainly the worst piece of spyware on Android phones. So I'm telling you, stay away from it. I keep mine disabled. If it re-enables itself because I accidentally clicked the wrong thing in Facebook app, which is terrible software, by the way, I have to re-disable it. It's one of the worst pieces of spyware that exists to this day. And I think I lied. I apologize. You're getting 3 bonus features. First of all, Stereo A. Stereo A's coronagraph there, showing no Earth-facing coronal mass ejections, as well as a heapin' helping of the 171 angstroms view. What else could you expect? There's the view of the south. Here's the view of the north. Thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share on your social media. Thanks again, new viewers, subscribers, and especially patrons. Please consider supporting the channel there, patreon.com/smashomash. Stare at the sun. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.